Many of you have asked me about matrix multiplication, saying you're confused. So I'm going to work some more examples. Now, to help you be able to see what we are doing with matrix multiplication, I have one matrix that is full of letters and one that is full of numbers. Okay? And I'm going to use different colors so that we can figure out the pattern here. So the pattern is row, you're going to multiply the row by the column. And what I mean by that is for the first element that's going right here, I'm going to use green. So we're going to do A times 2, so we'd have 2A. Then we're going to add B times this one, which is 4. So we'd have 4B. So I multiply these two together, and then I add them together. Okay? So multiply the two in the box, multiply the two that are underlined, and I add them together. Okay, since this was the first row in the first column, it gives me my A11 element of the matrix. Next, I'm going to go ahead and find the A12. So I'm going to look at the first row and this second column. So what if I did A times 3, and I'm going to add to that B times 5. So I use the first row and the second column to get my A12 element, and I have 3A plus 5B. I multiplied the two that were in circles, and I added to that the two that are underlined multiplied together. All right, let's go to the next row of our matrix. So we're going to look at this A21 element. So this will be the second row in the first column. So I'm going to do C times 2. And then I'm going to do D times 4. So what I did was I took the first two elements, multiplied them together, plus the second two elements multiplied together. So I have 2 times C plus 4 times D. Lastly, let's look at the A22 element. So I'm going to be looking at this second row and this second column. So first we're going to do the first element in the row and the column. So we're going to do C, probably should have done a circle, oh well. C times 3, so that'd be 3C plus. Next we're going to do D times 5. So we have 5D. So I multiplied this, added it to these two multiplied. Do. So I did the first row by the first column, and that got, not the first row, the second row by the second column to get my A22 element. And so this would be my matrix here. Okay, let's look at another example. This time we're going to look at where we have this, where we have a 3 by 3 matrix and we just have a single column matrix. Now you may be wondering, are we allowed to do that? They're not the same size. Unlike addition and subtraction, they do not have to be the same size. However, the number of their dimensions do have to equal in some regard. So let's write out what the dimensions of this matrix is. Well, it has 3 rows by 3 columns, so 3 by 3. Now the dimensions of this matrix, it has 3 rows and 1 column. So the number of columns here has to equal the number of rows here, which they do. So we are allowed to multiply because this number and this number are equal. So when we multiply these, let me get some colors here. We're going to do row by column again, but we only have 1 column. And remember, these two outside dimensions are going to give us the dimensions of our new matrix. So it's going to be 3 rows by 1 column, so it'll be similar to this. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to multiply A times, we're going to do this row by this column, okay? So A times 2, and then plus B times 3, plus C times 4. So I did A times 2, B by 3, and C by 4. And I added each of these together, and that gave me my first element. Next, we're going to do the second row by this same column. So I'm going to go here and here. Those really should be on top of each other, but then you won't be able to see them. Okay, so we're going to do D times 2, E times 3, F times 4. So again, I'm going to circle these two. Those get multiplied. This one and this one gets multiplied. This one and this one gets multiplied. Now for the last one, so I'm going to do this last row in the same column. And I'm going to do G times 2 plus H times 3. Here's my H, here's my 3. Here, why don't we label this as we go? Do my I times 4. And this is our matrix. Notice that this is a column matrix because all of these added together would be one number if all of these were numbers. But this is just one term. Okay? Next, we're going to look at a bigger matrix, so a 3 by 3. Again, I still kept with doing letters times numbers. Usually you would have numbers and numbers, but the letters help you to see and understand the pattern a little bit better. So this time I'm going to need all of my color markers to do this one. Okay, so we're going to do the A11 position first. And I'm going to draw my matrix pretty big. Okay, so we're going to do the A11. So that's this first element. So A11 corresponds to the first row and the first column. So I'm going to multiply A times 1 plus B times 4 plus C times 7. So I did this first row times the first column component-wise and then added them together. Next, we're going to do, why don't we do this first row with this second column. So that's going to give me the A12 element. So I'd have A times 2 plus B times 5 plus C times 8. So I did this first row times this second column component-wise and then added them together. All right, let's do the A13 element. So the first row and the third column. So I'm going to do this first row and this third column. So I'll do A times 3 first plus B times 6 plus C times 9. Multiplied each of these component-wise and added them together to get the A13, first row, third column. All right, now let's do the second row and the first column. Okay, so I'm going to do D times 1 plus E times 4 plus F times 7. So I multiplied this one, added it to these two multiplied, which is added to these two multiplied. All right, next we will do this row, but this second column to get the A22 element. So I'd have D times 2 plus E times 5 plus F times 8. Multiplied, 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 all three of them added together. All right, now let's do this second row by this third column, and that'll give me the A23 element. So I'd have D times 3 plus E times 6 plus F times, oh, that should be a 9. F times 9. So D times 3, E times, oh no. Yeah, we're right. D times 3, E times 6, F times 9. Second row, third column. Second row, third column. Okay? Now let's do the last row. So first we're going to do the third row by the first column. So G times 1 plus H times 4 plus I times 7. G times 1 plus H times 4 plus I times 7. Okay, let's do the 3, 2 element. So that's the third row, second column. So I have G times 2 plus H times 5 plus I times 8. G times 2, H times 5, I times 8. Now, lastly, we're going to do this third row by this third column. So I'd have G times 3 plus H times 6 plus I times 9. And there we go. Now we have multiplied two 3 by 3 matrices